Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you and welcome to Islam and Life with me, Tariq Ramadan, broadcasting from London. In today's show we ask the question, what should Muslims today learn from Prophet Ibrahim's acceptance to sacrifice his son?
Eid al-Adha. On this day, Prophet Ibrahim accepted God's order to sacrifice his son Ismail. It is a central story for all main religions. Yet Islam's emphasis is stronger. Why? And what does the story say of gratitude, sacrifice, and worldly trials? This week's Islam and Life asks, what should Muslims today learn from Prophet Ibrahim's acceptance to sacrifice his son?
That's an important story, and if we come back to the Islamic tradition, we find that the sacrifice, Ibrahim's sacrifice and his acceptance is central for many, many reasons. We find the same story in the Bible, with one very important difference, is the way Ibrahim alayhi salam is talking to his son. In the Bible, the son doesn't know. In the Islamic tradition, not only the son knows about what is going to happen, but he's accepting his father's acceptance and saying, do it, do because this is what you have to do. And it's based on something which has to do a very important lesson as to the relationship with God, this love towards God and the love towards the son. And it has to do with the relationship, the spiritual dimension of life, and then sacrifice, as we heard, but also struggling and asking this deep question, which has to do with a prophet, the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, who is tested by God. And if a prophet is tested, what does it mean for the believers who are taking the prophets as example? These are fundamental questions, and to answer all these questions, I'm joined by my guest, Islamic lecturer and scholar, Maulana Shahid Raza. Thank you so much for being with us. Once again, you came before and we are very happy to have you. Let me come to the beginning, the story. How would you tell the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his acceptance to in fact sacrifice his son for the sake of God?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As we all know, Prophet Ibrahim is the second most important prophet in the long line of prophets after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Quran speaks about the life, character, message and teachings of Ibrahim alayhi salam in 25 surahs at 63 different places. So it is self-evident how much importance Quran is given to the life and teachings of this great prophet. Indeed, one of the remarkable stories of Prophet Ibrahim's life is his readiness to sacrifice his son Ismail alayhi salam under the divine will. And Quran speaks about it, that he saw the dream, Inni ara fil manam, Anni adbahuka. O my son, I have seen the dream that I must sacrifice you. Fanzur ma tara. So what do you say about it?
He's talking to his son.
He's talking to his son. And here I can see the art of consultation is happening. He has received a divine command from God that you must sacrifice your son. But before sacrificing, he is doing two things. He is trying to consult his son about his dream. That's why he says, Fanzur Madha Tara. And then he is also trying to obtain his full participation in this exercise of sacrifice, so that nobody could tell in the future that look, he was a father and son was a small son, so he forced him to be slaughtered.
Yes.
That was not the case.
And by the way, what you just said is exactly the difference between the story that we find in the Bible and the story that we find in the Quran. In the Bible, the same story without the son being consulted. In fact,
That's
the father
right.
said, God will know. He's not answering the question of who is going to be sacrificed. So there is something which is very important, about consultation here.
Yeah. So we can learn here this art and mechanism of consultation, even for things that are divinely ordained. And he was a family man. The second lesson we can learn here, that he married, then he started praying to God, Rabbi habli min as-salihin. Then he had 2 sons, and he then brought up them wonderfully. The historians have written a lot about it, that where from Ismail learned the obedience, the respect, the faith. He did not go to a school before this story of sacrifice. So he brought up, he gave them moral and spiritual teachings and guidance wonderfully.
Yes. It's quite interesting to listen to, in fact, his acceptance of this sacrifice. And he said, "If'al ma tu'mar," said, "Do what has been ordered."
Yes.
Means, in fact, that this is coming from the old education that his father gave him before. So there is something which is a two-way process. He's educating the son in the light of Allah's and God's teachings, and then at one point to be able to say, okay, I surrender, I accept what should happen.
Yes. And people may think, who do not know in detail the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, they might think that he was a very unkind, inhuman person, was trying to kill his own child. Killing your own child is not something good. It does not show your love and affection and kindness towards your children. But Quran says, Inna Ibrahim la'awwahun halim. He was a soft and kind-hearted person of gentle nature.
Yes. So I want you to explain this, because this is central. You know, in the West, with very old philosophical tradition, there is a philosopher and at the same time a novelist like Dostoevsky, a Russian writer, who said once, just portraying the atheistic mind or the people who are rejecting God, say, how come, facing the torture, the suffering of a young boy, 8 years old, suffering before dying, say, how God could ask or accept this to happen, an innocent to suffer before dying? And then others saying, how come God could ask a prophet, and one of the most important prophets that we have, Ibrahim, to sacrifice his son? Is this the will of a loving God? Your answer then, it's important.
Of course, because God has the knowledge of each and everything. God never wanted the son to be killed by Ibrahim in reality. Yeah. He was only testing the faith and the love of Ibrahim, which he claimed to be having for God. So it was only a trial and a test. And Ibrahim came out of this trial successfully, so marvelously. Yeah. So the son was not even injured at all, but it was a test, and people who have love, who claim to be obedient to God or to any other object, they have always been going historically through these trials and tests.
So tell us about this, because in fact he waited for so long to get a child, to get a boy, and that he got it. It was a gift. And then after the gift, which is a gift coming from God, God is testing him by saying, now you kill him for the sake of my love. So I'm testing you with two loves here.
Exactly.
My love. So this is a deep... So what is the meaning of this test that you are talking about?
The meaning is very obvious. The lesson we can draw from the story of Ibrahim is that, of course, we love the environment, we love the neighbors, we love our wives and husbands, we love our children, we love so many other things, values, traditions, culture. We also love God, but for each person or individual, there is a particular level of love to be enjoyed. At the top of this world of loving things and objects comes the love for God, because that is the root of all sorts, all kinds of kindness and love in the world. If you love God, then for the sake of God, you love human beings, you love animals, you love the environment. So there is a relationship between God and His creation, and that's why loving God is supreme.
So if I listen to you, which is something which is once again essential in any spiritual journey, which is to know how you deal with your emotions, how do you deal with your loves, because as you said, it's natural to love your parents, it's natural to love your kids, it's natural to... But now there is something which is what Muhammad ﷺ said. The Prophet said to Umar ibn al-Khattab when he said, you are not going to complete your faith if you don't love God and me more than yourself.
Of course.
Meaning in fact that there is a way to change the nature, the substance, the essence, the intensity of love. So from this story, this test, how would you suggest, or how would you explain that we can change the nature of our loves towards human beings or towards the creator of humanity?
It is a very wonderful and vivid journey of faith. Yes, I know, and perhaps you know better than me, people are saying that everything is allowed in love and war. But here, in the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, everything is not allowed. Love also has some mechanism and framework. Again, the war also has its own terms of engagement. So, loving God, loving Prophet Muhammad, loving the creation of God is completely ordained and allowed in Islam. Yes. But for every love, there is some sort of mechanism, and that is the real enjoyment, that if you take it and you can control your emotions, that will benefit you in this world and in the hereafter.
Yeah, that's very true. Now there is something that we can add to this, which is the relationship between love and sacrifice. That in fact you have to give, you have to know, you have to experience sacrifice, which could be something which with the self, which is something which the way we give, which is also the way you master your emotions. So how would you talk about sacrifice in the life of a believer, men and women?
Yeah, sacrifice is one of the greatest spiritual and moral value. This sense of sacrifice makes you a good human being, a good citizen, and a good Muslim.
How would you translate the sense
because
of sacrifice?
Sacrifice would bring into the being of a person kindness, tolerance, mercy, sympathy, understanding,
But what is sacrifice
courage
then?
and bravery also.
Yes, but try to explain what is sacrifice then, to understand why are you
Yeah,
putting
when
on-
you sacrifice your own emotions for the sake of others, you may be required to sacrifice your savings, your money, your assets for the betterment of poor and
Yeah.
needy people. You may require to sacrifice your own commitments towards certain things for a higher objective that is required for the human being or for the community. It is sacrifice that makes you ready to leave your own country. It is sacrifice which makes you a kind-hearted person, giving large amount of money for the poor and needy people in the world. It is sacrifice that makes you a loving individual, and it is sacrifice that makes you an accommodating individual. You are not greedy. It is the result of sacrifice. We are not running behind things blindly. It needs the sense of sacrifice.
And would you say it has to do with this struggle with your own ego as part of sacrificing?
Of course. It also purifies the heart and mind and attitude of an individual. The sense of sacrifice makes you humble.
What would you say about, or how would you talk about the main lessons the Muslims of today have to get in order to get the very essence of the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam?
Number one, shall I say that this story brings the great value of courage and bravery. You need a lot of courage to take your child to be sacrificed by your own hands. So we need courage and bravery, which is almost in so many occasions hardly is seen within our society. We need to be a person that gives value to the family life. We also can learn immense love and obedience for our Creator from this story. And we can also learn the art of consultation.
Because what you are saying is that it's a story about the family, in fact.
Of
it's not
course.
only about Ibrahim alayhi salam. It's
No,
the
it
family.
is a story of family. Hajara, Ismail,
Yes,
Ibrahim, they are all involved in the story. So it is a story of a family. Peace be with them all.
Yes. And then last lesson that we can get out of this, would you say something else that the Muslims of today, courage and at the same time perseverance and love. Second is to think about the family as
Of
central.
course.
And then what else when it comes to the society?
We can also learn from the story the hospitality for which Prophet Ibrahim is well known. The scholars of Tafsir have recorded many interesting stories about Ibrahim being a very hospitable person. They say, some of the Mufassirun say that he always tried to eat food with someone. The food is ready, it has been served, and he is at the door waiting for someone who can join him with his food. So he was a wonderful, hospitable individual and person. So hospitality justice, sacrifice, kindness, family values, a loving father, a loving husband. These are the stories we can learn on the occasion of Eid al-Adha, when we are celebrating this great festival of the Islamic year and remembering Prophet Ibrahim.
Yes, and connecting something that you said at the beginning, the way he was giving to God and bringing back to God is the way he was giving to people. His generosity with people.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I think that was interesting thoughts. Let me just try to summarize all what you said, and you said a lot. The starting point is, I think that we were talking a lot about Ibrahim alayhi salam, and you said something and you repeated it at the end, is the story of a family. That he was caring about his son, he talked to him, there is something which has to do with consultation, the shura within the family, and that what he got is the very deep response from his son, but his son in fact was educated by him to get the very essence of life. So it's very something which is a virtuous circle of education and consultation and giving back to God, because this is the ultimate recognition of his power and his love. And then all what you said about these years with the sense of sacrifice, the way you are kind, the way you give, the way you are generous with and showing generosity towards people, all these qualities that you were talking about, which are good for Muslims to remember, and especially today's, because we have a feeling that the spiritual dimension of all this story is sometimes missing. That's all we have time for. Please let us know your thoughts and views on any of the shows you have seen, and here is the way to contact us.
We at Islam in Life would like to hear your views about the subjects that we discuss. We would also love to hear your suggestions for our program, so get in touch with us. You can share your thoughts with other Islam in Life fans, engage in debate, and find out how to watch our previous shows. Follow us on Twitter at Islam in Life TV, or join us on Facebook by liking our page, Islam and Life on Press TV.
Finally, I would like to thank my guest, Maulana Shahid Raza. Thank you so much for being with us and for your input. And I wish you Eid Mubarak, Eid al-Adha, and I hope to see you next week, inshallah.